world's two biggest economies, the US and China, are on a collision course. Donald Trump has promised to impose high tariffs on Chinese imports once he's back in the White House.
With a combined GDP of more than $4 trillion, the core economies of Southeast Asia are expanding notably faster than those of Europe or the US.
Imagine a world where the United States, the anchor of global trade and stability for decades, retreats from its leadership role. What would the economic and political landscape look like? This isn't just a hypothetical question. It's one that economists, policymakers, and investors are grappling with today. At a recent conference in Singapore, convened by the Peterson Institute for International Economics and the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy,
imperatives of multilateralism, economic resilience, increased prosperity and security, and strengthened peace and stability.
this very scenario was put under the microscope. For Southeast Asia, a region deeply intertwined with the US economy and its defense framework, the question hit particularly close to home. As global uncertainty grows, it's worth examining how the absence or even diminished presence of the United States could reshape the world. To understand the gravity of such a scenario, let's consider Southeast Asia. American firms are the region's largest investors, and the US dollar underpins much of the financial stability here. Central bankers in these nations track US economic indicators as closely as they monitor their own inflation rates and growth figures. Yet, despite the remarkable economic strides made by China, it simply hasn't reached the level of influence required to replace America as a stabilizing force. The rise of Donald Trump, with his unpredictable policies and America First rhetoric, has further magnified fears of US disengagement. Tariffs, even on exports from close allies, have rattled markets. Currencies across the region have weakened against the dollar, and policymakers are bracing for the ripple effects of slower global growth. This anxiety isn't new, but Trump's tenure sharpened the focus on a critical question.
Their product in America is to build it in America. Very simple. Build it in America and only in America.
What happens when the US transitions from a guarantor of stability to a potential source of instability? The Singapore conference explored potential solutions to mitigate these risks, but none came without challenges. One suggestion was for Southeast Asian nations to approach the US individually, crafting deals tailored to Trump's transactional style. However, this piecemeal strategy could backfire, leaving countries vulnerable to being picked off by US demands without collective leverage. A more ambitious idea was regional integration, pooling sovereignty over trade policy, antitrust regulations, and monetary affairs. While this sounds promising in theory, the reality is far more complex. Unlike the European Union, Southeast Asia lacks the deep political and economic cohesion necessary for such an approach. For now, regional unity remains a distant dream. China, often seen as the logical alternative to US leadership, also poses dilemmas. Despite its rapid rise, it doesn't yet inspire the same level of trust or stability. Moreover, its post-pandemic economic struggles and limited global outreach reflect its reluctance to take on true world leadership. Trump's approach to the global economy reveals deep contradictions. On one hand, he has criticized nations that consider moving away from the US dollar as a reserve currency. On the other, he's lamented how a strong dollar undermines American industry. This tension was highlighted when Trump inexplicably lashed out at the idea of a BRICS currency, an initiative that remains more fantasy than reality. Efforts to deliberately weaken the dollar, akin to the 1985 Plaza Accord, are unlikely to succeed today. Markets have grown exponentially since then, making state-driven interventions less impactful. Moreover, the geopolitical landscape has shifted. The Cold War is over, and key allies like Germany and Japan no longer play the same strategic roles they once did. Despite Trump's rhetoric, global markets may serve as a natural check on his more extreme policies. As Warwick McKibben, a former Australian central banker, pointed out, any drastic measures, such as large-scale deportations or sweeping tariffs, would trigger market reactions severe enough to force a policy reevaluation. Speculating on the absence of a global superpower is not a new exercise. During China's COVID-0 lockdowns, many wondered what a world without a robust Chinese economy might look like. Similarly, in the aftermath of World War II, as the UK struggled with insolvency, global anxiety centered on the void left by London's declining influence. These scenarios remind us of the interconnectedness of great powers and their pivotal roles in global stability. Today, the US remains indispensable, even amid its challenges. While China's economy is not going anywhere, it hasn't yet reached the point where it can offer a credible alternative to US leadership. For Southeast Asia and beyond, this underscores a sobering reality. The world isn't ready for America to step back. The idea of a world without the US isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a reflection of today's anxieties. While alternatives like regional integration or Chinese leadership offer glimmers of hope, they're fraught with challenges. For now, the US remains the backbone of global stability, even as its actions occasionally shake the very foundation it built. As we navigate this uncertain era, one thing is clear. The absence of American leadership would leave a void too large for any single nation or coalition to fill. In this interconnected world, the balance of power is more fragile than ever, and preserving it requires careful thought and deliberate action.